Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over some of the most important tips, in my opinion, to make good build-ups for your tracks. There's a lot of tips that I've learned over the years, which I'm going to share here, and hopefully this will help you out to make a good build-up that leads successfully into whatever drop you have. I'm going to quickly play what we have here, and we'll talk about how exactly I made it. So let's go ahead and hit that now. This is our build-up right here. Right, so that's what we're working with. I'm playing a little bit of the drop on purpose because it's very important for kind of the context of the build-up. So let me explain that there. That's the first tip. You want your build-up to successfully reveal your drop. And this is, of course, a tip I want to talk about before we even get into how exactly to make the build-up energetic. The first thing is, in the songwriting process, you see how this is successfully foreshadowing the drop itself. It has that same lead sound, that melody, but it's being filtered in, so that way, as a listener, if you've never heard this song before, you can kind of get a feel for what the drop's going to sound like. It's teasing it in a good way. That's a very important tip. And I could show you here if we isolate a lot of elements here, so like our chord, our lead sound, the bass that's in the drop. I'm going to show you how this evolves over the course of the build-up. The tip here that I definitely want to share is that you want to make sure that your instruments are actually opening up over the course of it. Anyone can throw risers over top a section and call it a build-up, but if your instrumental itself, your actual track, is reacting to everything, then you're going to have a really good one. So check this out right here. This is what's happening instrumental-wise in the build-up. If you look up at the top, over here, you could see I start with a low pass where it's just low frequencies. So let me visualize that on an EQ. I'm basically starting with something like this, and I'm automating this point to open up over time. And that creates a very obvious build-up effect. That's something that's in a lot of music. Just something as simple as that. It sounds really, I guess the word is epic, I'd want to reach for in that case. Sounds like that, it's really nice. And this is before we go into how I actually built out the build-up drum-wise, which is what I want to talk about next. So over here, these two stems are just my drum mix for the track, and you could very clearly hear everything build-up-wise right in these. So I started with some risers, and we'll break those down in the project file after, but it starts like this, and this is a kick layer. This kick is low-cut a little bit, so it doesn't have a lot of sub-information, but it's doing this. And then it goes into the drop itself. So let's look at this in project here, and we'll talk about everything I added. So instrumentation aside, this is purely the drum samples and our risers and stuff. Let's go over what I did. So down here is where I started messing with that. I started with a snare roll, and I have an EQ automation on here, which we're going to open up so you can see what that's doing. This is on Mixer 60. So it starts like this, and you see I'm automating this section right here to open up over time. So snare roll, very critical for a build-up. This is basically a snare sample that's fading in and playing in repetition really, really fast at 16ths. And of course I did that EQ automation so that way it doesn't just sound like the same noise constantly. You don't want that. Just made it good. And I've coupled that with a few risers and impact samples. So we have this, just getting some tension over time. And these samples, you want to make sure you're mixing them accordingly. You don't just want to throw them in. I'm doing EQing on a lot of them. For example, if I have one that's super present in the high end, the other ones don't necessarily need that. It's going to get really cluttered. And you want to make sure to keep that in mind and mix them. So we have a little clappy impact like this that comes in when that riser hits, just for more tension release. We have this uplifter. And this one too, that one's quite loud. We've also got this one that comes in the second half, which is really cool. See, all those are doing their thing, and that's playing with that little snare roll. So we have something like this now. Suddenly this sounded really cool, and it got a lot of tension over time for this build-up, which is exactly what you want. And again, this is with all the instrumentation and stuff muted. We couple that with the stuff I did show you before, which is taking our drop elements, low-passing them, and opening up that filter over time. You get this kind of deal right here. And another tip I have for you, actually, now that I mention it and we're here, I find that this strat is really good if you've already done your drop. In this instance, the drop was the very first thing I made with this entire track. I started with the drop and built everything else after the fact. So that means your buildup, because you're, like I said before, you're teasing your drop, like you want to reveal that melody before it does come in its like full sense for that drop. Because it already exists, it's really easy to just take that element. Like you see here, I literally rendered it out, and I, from there, put it on a new mixer, and that's where I'm doing my filtering. That was a really, really great way to get that going down fast, and it would have been a lot harder to do if I was still like in kind of songwriting mode right there. But because I already had my drop made, it was nice and simple and easy to figure out. A couple other tips I do have to make your build-ups a bit better is to make sure that you're paying attention to how much bass you have in them. This one in particular, I kind of have some bass going on in the intro, like pre-build-up, so if we go, say, over here, I have this section, which has a bass line, but when we get to like the beginning of our build-up down here, there's that little bassy impact, but apart from that, the sub's kind of disappearing here. There's not too much going on, and that's because you want to make sure your drop still has a lot of impact. Sub is great for that, but if you have too much sub in your build-up, your drop is going to fall a bit flat. You don't want to have none, though. Let me demonstrate that, too. Like this. If you had no sub, like anything below that, it sounds a little tinny and empty. You want to have stuff going on, and that's why, as well, I've taken this kick sample that's over here, and I cut out a lot of bass from that. Because you'll see here, when the kick switches to the drop, that's a lot bassier. I wanted to make sure that that kick had much more impact, and that it wasn't too distracting in this build-up. You don't want too much of that. So pay attention to your sub. Sub is super important in a build-up. You want to kind of maybe start with some and filter it away over time. That's a great strat as well. You might see some people do this little trick on your build-ups. This is something you can do. I didn't do it in this track, but it does work in quite a lot of them. You have something like this maybe on your master, and at the end of your build-up, you automate it to go like this, and then bring it back. Like that. That's a great way to give your drop a ton of impact, because you're getting rid of literally everything by like the end of it and then quickly pulling it back. That's a super OP build-up tip that a lot of people will utilize. Quite like that one. You can also couple that with doing things like automating reverb to get really big and then cutting back to 0 right before. That's a fun one as well. But those are just a couple of like build-up tips that I do have to share with you here. And I see a lot of people saying like build-ups and doing like effects, riser stuff are their least favorite parts of production. And that's something me personally, I don't feel. I really do like it, honestly. It's fun to get like a lot of hype going and building out your track in that way. And hopefully these tips will maybe motivate you to be able to put that together in your own tracks. I'm curious what you guys do come up with. Let me know in the comment section below as well if you have any other tips you'd like to add. But that's going to wrap up this one. I do want to say though, if you enjoyed this track in particular, this is releasing very soon. It's not going to be out when this video goes live, but it will be out by the end of the month. And I will of course go and pin that in the comments when it's out, so that way you can go listen to it. I think out of all of my music so far, this is maybe my best track, so I'm really excited to release this one. And if it is out by the time you're watching this, I'd appreciate if you went and checked out the full version. Let me know what you think of that as well. But if you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe for future content from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.